Do you think I want to stay separated for now?
Really? Really, you want to stay separated?
Yeah, I do.
A courtroom filled with ghosts. Not literal spirits, but echoes of love betrayed, promises shattered. And a family legacy that once stood proudly on national television, now crumbling in deafening silence. The faces were familiar, but the warmth was gone. This wasn't a family anymore. It was a battleground, a spiritual empire in ruins. The double doors creaked open. Kody Brown entered first, but this wasn't the man the world once knew. His shoulders slumped, his eyes hollowed out. That magnetic, almost arrogant stride he carried for years on TV was gone. In its place, a shuffle. The air changed when he stepped in, heavy, tense, suffocating. It felt like watching a king arrive at his own execution. He didn't glance at anyone. Not at the cameras tucked quietly in corners, not at the murmuring spectators, not even at the women flanking him, the two who had once rearranged their lives to love him. To his right sat Robyn. Her face was blotchy, makeup smudged, her hands trembling around a balled-up tissue that looked like it had drowned in her tears. She didn't meet his eyes either. This wasn't her carefully curated reality TV persona. This was a woman unraveling live and raw. To his left, Janelle sat as still as a statue carved from grief. She wore no tears, just fire. Her stare was straight ahead, never flickering toward Kody, not even once. She radiated something terrifying, resolve, the kind born only after years of betrayal. Her jaw was tight, her fists clenched softly in her lap. If heartbreak made sound, it would sound like her silence. Behind her sat her children once, just background names in the family's glossy narrative. Now they were witnesses to their father's reckoning, Gabriel Garrison's absence. Left a ghost in the pews. Logan, Madison, all sitting, arms folded, eyes cold. Watching their father's fall, not with vengeance, but with mourning. The judge, a seasoned woman with eyes like granite, cleared her throat and addressed the courtroom. This hearing is to determine the division of joint assets and temporary custody of any dependent still under the age of 18. It will also weigh testimonies related to emotional distress, familial abandonment, and misappropriation of shared funds. The words dropped like grenades, gasps, sharp exhales, even a few audible sobs. This wasn't about a marriage ending. It was about a family being legally dissected. A spiritual dream placed under the scalpel of the state. Kody swallowed hard. He had chosen to represent himself a foolish gesture of pride. But the Kody who once dominated conversations, who talked over wives with spiritual justifications and thinly veiled superiority, had disappeared. His voice, when he finally spoke, cracked under its own weight. "Yes, Your Honor," he said, barely audible. "I'm here." Voluntarily. The judge nodded once and gestured toward Janelle's attorney. A tall, lean man with sharp eyes, and no time for theatrics. He approached like someone who had waited years to finally speak the truth aloud. "This is not a case about furniture or child support, Your Honor," he began. "This is a case about spiritual betrayal. It's about a man who used the word God to excuse neglect, who claimed leadership while abandoning sons, manipulating wives, and hiding behind a narrative he controlled for over a decade." He turned toward Kody and didn't flinch. "We will present evidence, text messages, journal entries, financial withdrawals, and perhaps most damning testimonies from his children. Their words will show a pattern of emotional cruelty, a favoritism so blatant it alienated every child not born to Robyn Brown." A ripple moved through the crowd like a storm. Janelle never moved. Her face didn't change, but her knuckles were white. Kody tried to interrupt, but the judge raised her hand. Then came Robyn's lawyer, soft-spoken woman with weary eyes. "My client is not seeking revenge," she began. "She is seeking recognition of the psychological toll this has taken on her children, and on the life she tried to build in good faith. She will offer examples of consistent parenting, financial transparency, and repeated yet rejected attempts to maintain family unity. Robyn's tissue twisted tighter in her fingers. Her lip quivered. But for once, her tears didn't move the room. The judge turned her gaze to Kody. "Mr. Brown," she said calmly, "you may address the court or either party before we continue." And in that moment, the man who once ruled a household of 4 wives and 18 children cracked. He stood, cleared his throat, but nothing came out. His mouth opened, closed. Then finally, "I didn't mean for this to happen," he choked out. "I thought I was doing what God wanted. I thought I was loving all of you the way I was supposed to. But somewhere I lost track of who I was supposed to be." He looked toward Janelle. She didn't blink. "I know I failed you," he whispered. "I failed our boys. I failed Garrison. I didn't even know he was crying for help until it was too late." A soft gasp echoed from the gallery. "I tried to hold everything together," Kody said, voice rising. "But everyone kept pulling away." "No," Janelle said aloud her first words. The courtroom froze. "They pushed us away," she said, her voice shaking but strong. "You made us choose between silence or exile. You wanted loyalty, not love. And now you're standing in the wreckage pretending you don't recognize it." Kody stared at her, eyes wet now. "Janelle, you don't get to say my name like that anymore," she said quietly. And with that, the courtroom went still again, not in peace, but in the thick, painful quiet that comes when a long lie is finally laid bare. The collapse of a family wasn't always loud. Sometimes it happened in the space between a broken man's whisper and a mother's. His knees trembled not from weakness, but from the unbearable gravity of the moment. He looked at Robyn first, then Janelle, then the judge. His voice, when it finally came, was thin and trembling, laced with years of denial unraveling in real time. "I never thought we'd be here," he said, barely louder than a whisper. But the courtroom heard every syllable like a thunderclap. "What began as faith, as love, turned into a storm I couldn't control. And in that storm, I hurt people. People I swore I would protect." He turned briefly toward the gallery. The faces of his children stared back, some stony, some empty, some quietly grieving a father they once worshipped. Garrison's empty seat burned like a wound. "I know I let some of my kids down," Kody choked out. "I know I wasn't there when it counted. I kept telling myself I was doing God's work. That love was something you could divide. But I forgot how to recognize love. I forgot how to give it." The courtroom remained still. No camera crews, no producers feeding lines. It's just reality, raw and loud in its silence. The judge gave a slight nod. "Very well. We will move forward with document review and begin cross-examination this afternoon. Court is in recess for 30 minutes. The gavel struck like a funeral bell. Kody sat down slowly, his hands trembling in his lap. A man once obsessed with control now looked lost, a patriarch unmade by his own hubris. He had let his family into the spotlight. Okay? Now he would have to answer for everything that happened when the lights went out. The courtroom fell still until Robyn Brown stood. She walked toward the witness stand like a woman approaching an open grave. Her movements were slow, deliberate, every step carrying the weight of guilt, love, and mourning. She wore simple black, not for drama, but for truth. Widow's clothing, not of a husband's death, but of a life that no longer existed. Her eyes were swollen from nights without sleep. Her fingers trembled as the bailiff handed her a bottle of water she wouldn't drink. In her lap sat a bundle of papers, their edges softened and worn. These weren't legal documents. They were Kody's letters, years' worth of desperate handwriting, ink faded but emotions intact. She held them up like they were scripture. Then spoke, barely audible. These were written when he still loved me." The judge's brow rose. "Motion to submit personal correspondence as evidence," her attorney requested. Granted, the judge replied. Robyn began to read, her voice breaking before the words even began to land. I can't be everything for everyone. I chose you, Robyn, and they'll never forgive us for it. She looked down at the letter, then out into the courtroom, her hands shaking. Even when he said he loved me, she whispered, he resented me. And they, Christine, Meri, Janelle, they hated me for it. But I didn't ask to be chosen. She looked directly at the judge, her voice rising ever so slightly. I didn't want to replace anybody. I just wanted to belong. But instead, I became the reason everything collapsed. A collective gasp moved through the room. A reporter scribbled frantically. Somewhere in the back, one of Janelle's daughters inhaled sharply. I remember the night Kody broke, Robyn continued. He sat at our kitchen table, head in his hands, and said, they hate me. They hate us. I think I'm done trying. Her voice cracked again. Her hands fumbled with the second letter. I see the pain I'm causing, but I can't quit. I want peace, but all I feel is guilt. That's Kody, she said. It's not the TV version. Not the leader or the father of many. The man who crumbled under the weight of his own choices. Tears streamed freely down her face now, but she didn't wipe them. For once, she let herself feel it all. You think I destroyed this family? Her voice was steel now. I was just the only one still standing when it collapsed. The judge leaned forward. Mrs. Brown, what are you asking this court for? Robyn paused, gathered herself. I don't want his money. I don't want revenge. Want the truth on record that I tried, that I loved, that I carried burdens not even mine to hold, that I stayed. I will continue to raise our children with honesty, not bitterness, but with boundaries. She stepped down, visibly shaking, and returned to her seat. Kody sat frozen. His face drained of color, hands clasped as if in prayer or surrender. He looked not embarrassed, but devastated. The man who once called himself a shepherd of his family was now simply a man, exposed, humbled, empty. Janelle remained unmoved, not because she was untouched, but because she had already lived through the collapse. This moment was just the confirmation. She rose slowly and walked to the witness stand. She did not cry. She did not shake. There was no tissue in her hand, no stack of letters, no dramatic pauses. If Robyn had been the storm of grief, Janelle was the eye of it. She sat down, straight, composed. But her stillness pulsed with quiet rage and righteous sorrow. The judge addressed her. Please state your name for the record. Janelle Brown, she said, without hesitation. And your relation to the parties? She didn't blink. Spiritual wife to Kody Brown, for more than 25 years. Her voice was calm, but beneath it was the echo of decades, of nights spent alone while he chased spiritual justification, of sons growing up with questions instead of affection, of promises made beneath the guise of faith, and broken under the weight of favoritism. And she was ready not for revenge, but for reckoning, or at least that's what I believed. I truly thought God had handed me a mission. That my path, however painful, had been divinely assigned to lead this family, to bind them through faith and unity. But now I understand it wasn't purpose. It was delusion. It was an illusion I clung to, a story I told myself so I didn't have to face what was crumbling around me. Kody took a breath, shaky. Burdened on turned his gaze fully on Janelle. His voice was quieter now, more human than it had sounded in years. I separated myself from your children. I chose comfort over commitment. I chose peace over presence. Robyn became my sanctuary. And I let that sanctuary grow into favoritism. And that favoritism, that became the crack, the fracture, the destruction of everything we built. Robyn sat silently behind her legal team, no longer the confident wife of the favored union. She had no notes to pass, no arguments to make. Her eyes were already wet, trembling on the edge of something she'd long denied. Because now here, under the weight of Kody's truth, there was no narrative to spin. I never meant to abandon anyone, Kody continued. But intentions mean nothing when your absence screams louder than any excuse. The judge didn't interrupt. She didn't jot down a thing. This wasn't for the record anymore. This was for the wreckage, the hearts in the room that had long stopped hoping. When Garrison died, Kody's voice cracked. A part of me died with him. And I know what you all believe. That I wasn't there, that I didn't call, didn't show up, didn't care. And you're right. A low gasp echoed. Someone in the gallery, maybe a cousin or an older sibling, broke into tears softly, unable to hold it in anymore. I saw the texts, I heard the voicemails, he whispered. But I was paralyzed. I didn't know how to respond. So I didn't know how to fix what I broke. So I disappeared. His hands shook now. He clenched them in two, fists willing the tremble to still. I told myself I was protecting Robyn, shielding the younger kids, keeping chaos out of our home, but I wasn't protecting anyone. I was hiding from guilt, from grief, from the man I had become. His eyes flickered to the gallery where two of his sons sat stoic, cold, unflinching. They didn't blink. They didn't offer him mercy. And why should they? To my children, Kody said, his voice breaking open, raw, I don't expect forgiveness. I wouldn't forgive me either. I missed birthdays. I missed your first heartbreaks. I missed everything you needed me for. And I left it all on your shoulders, burdens I should have carried. In the back row, one of Janelle's younger daughters collapsed silently into her sister's arms. Face soaked with grief she had bottled up too long. And to you, Janelle, Kody turned again. Softer now, reverent even. You were the spine of this family, the heartbeat. While I stood out front playing leader, it was you holding everything together. I dismissed your strength. I overlooked your sacrifices. I ignored your sons. Janelle didn't flinch. Her face was unreadable, but her eyes shimmered, with unshed tears that she would never allow to fall in public. She had cried too many times alone to give him the privilege of seeing one more. Then Kody turned to Robyn. Robyn, he said gently, I leaned on you far too much. I used your love as a shield. I let you become the scapegoat. And even when you asked me to make peace with the others, I chose to withdraw. You didn't tear this family apart. I did. Robyn's hand covered her mouth. Her tears finally fell, fast and heavy. Not performative, not staged. Just grief pure, irreversible grief for a family that was no longer hers to mourn alone. I let ego take the place of empathy, Kody confessed. I hid behind faith instead of walking in it. And when it got too hard, I vanished. Facing the judge now, Kody's voice steadied not from confidence, but from surrender. I'm not asking for custody, not yet. Not until I've earned it. Not until my children feel safe. Not just by law, but by heart. The judge looked, visibly moved, her eyes wet behind her glasses. No words can undo what I've done, Kody said, exhaling the weight of a decade. But maybe this courtroom can be the beginning of something different, something honest, even if it means I've finally stopped controlling everything and just offer space for healing. And with that, he sat. Not as a husband, not as a father. Just as a man who had nothing left to say but the truth. No applause followed. No eye rolls, no gasps, only silence. It's the kind that follows real transformation, or the final breath of something once sacred. For the first time ever, Kody Brown did not argue. He did not justify. He simply accepted the pain he caused. The final day of court arrived beneath slate skies and icy winds, like even nature knew. What was ending here? Inside, the air was heavier than before. The testimonies were done, the tears had already fallen. What remained was the verdict, then the reckoning. Kody sat alone now. No lawyer flanked him. His hands were clasped together as he stared into the dull courtroom table. The man America once saw as proud, commanding, and righteous was now just a hollowed version of himself, surrounded by silence. Robyn sat nearby, her hands trembling, her eyes vacant. No defiance left, no power in her name. Janelle didn't look at either of them. She sat surrounded by her daughter Stall.com and dignified. Her silence was louder than anything Kody had ever shouted. The judge entered quietly, having reviewed all submitted documentation, witness testimony, and family history. She began. This court finds as follows. Every breath in the room hitched. All residual property and community assets shall be equally divided between former spouses, with the exception of those held in trust for minor dependents. There was a subtle but powerful sigh from Janelle's row. Promise of fairness finally fulfilled. Robyn Brown shall retain full legal custody of her children with Kody Brown. No joint custody is requested or required at this time. Robyn didn't flinch. She didn't blink. It was as if she already knew. Mr. Kody Brown, the judge continued, now firm, shall attend 6 months of mandatory therapy and family counseling sessions before any visitation is considered. Supervised visits only. No unsupervised contact until further review. A hush fell over the gallery. Even seasoned reporters looked stunned. And finally, the judge concluded, her tone now deeply solemn. There shall be no communication, verbal, digital, or otherwise between Mr. Brown and the children of Janelle Brown, unless they initiate it and it is approved by a licensed therapist. Kody shut his eyes. It was done. Not just the trial, not just the marriage, but the illusion. The dream of a united family, of patriarchal redemption. It died here, not with rage, but with reverent silence. The ruling is effective immediately, the judge said, then added softly, this court is adjourned.